Oh, it's great to be here on this wonderful, beautiful day. Sun shining out there. I mean, isn't it great? And on top of that, my team beat Argentina yesterday. Who's into the World Cup? Anybody into the, nobody, one person into the World Cup, okay? You guys, what is wrong with you guys? The World Cup. I mean, this is, nobody's into soccer. What is the deal here? Okay, we've got, Iceland is the smallest country to have ever gotten into the World Cup. It had chances 250 to 1 to win. They actually tied Argentina. They're an interesting team. The manager of the team is a dentist. They can't afford full-time players. Their players are most of them fishermen and steel workers. That's their full-time job. The goalie, who does amazing, is a filmmaker. But they held Argentina, one of the favorites, to a draw. So I'm feeling good. I don't know, but sorry, you guys, you're missing out on the joy. Anyway, hey, it's great to be here. And we're going to talk today about where is the love. The challenge of the church is, we make it so complicated. There's all this theology, there's all these other things. The bottom line comes down to, when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment, he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. And we get stuck on this. This is the core of social intelligence. And we live in a culture where social intelligence has taken a huge nosedive. It's interesting, I was speaking to a group of psychologists. They were brainstorming on what exactly is social intelligence. It's complex. And so therefore I said, you know what, I have figured out the definition of social intelligence. It is basically to make sure that you have compassion, you have kindness, you have humility, you have gentleness, and you have patience. And they sat down and said, this is the most brilliant definition that we have ever heard. Where did you get it? Well, Colossians 3:12. I couldn't tell them. I just said, well, it's part of the Jewish Christian tradition, and they can accept that. Way back when I was a kid, I'd go down and visit my grandparents every summer. Actually, I didn't visit them. My parents didn't know how to handle me. So they thought, how can we get rid of Steve for 10 days? Let's send him away to Grandma and Grandpa. And they handled it perfectly. Well, my grandmother was an interesting person. She was a school teacher, and she was a leader in the church, small community church. But in the 60s, a problem arrived. You see, what happened in the small, conservative, working community, a group from San Francisco, a group of what was called hippies at the point, decided to move up into the valley. Now, the valley didn't know how to do with this, partially because most of the women would walk through town topless, and that kind of threw off this conservative city, Okay, what do we do with these people, They've got long hair, they know how to smoke cannabis in amazing ways that they'd never heard of, and they frequently were topless. And so the church decided how to solve it. Put out placards for every business, no hippie allowed. We will chase them out of town because these people are corrupting our kids. They don't have our values. We don't know what to do with it. Now, my grandmother, who was highly respected, said, now, wait a minute. Is this what Jesus would do? And the community said, absolutely. Absolutely. We are supposed to flee sin. We're supposed to stone sinners. We're supposed to, she explained at one point that they were already stoned, but anyway, that didn't go anywhere. Somehow that didn't help her argument. So my grandmother decided that she, in her long formal dress, high heel shoes, fake pearls, would borrow a truck, drive into the mountains, and start a Sunday school class. She said, those people need Jesus. I don't care whether they don't look like us. I don't care whether they have the same values as us. I don't care whether they're topless or not. The issue is, I'm going to go up there, and she took 4 posts, stuck them in the ground, wrapped visqueen around it, bought a bunch of grapes and crackers, and went up and started teaching Sunday school. Within 10 years, there was the Kilma Community Church was developed, a log cabin church that is still in existence there. Because my grandmother said, where is the love? And as we look at Colossians 3:12, therefore as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has any grievance against someone, and forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all of these virtues, put on love. That's the challenge. We're challenged to go beyond our comfort zone, to stretch ourselves, and to really show love. But the bottom line is, in the next screen we're going to see, a lot of us are dirty. It starts off, clothe yourself. Some of us have worn out clothes. We need to put on something new, something different. We need to clothe ourselves differently, because what we've been doing doesn't necessarily work. And again, as Christians, we are to be known by our love. And a lot of us aren't necessarily known by our love. And so the challenge is, how do we clean up our act? Not necessarily in being perfect, but in terms of showing love. That's the challenge. And the bottom line is, we all need to clean up our act. We are messed up. As it says in Genesis 3, it says that we are really made up of 2 things. First of all, we're all in the image of God. Secondly, we're all made out of dirt. Now think of that contrast. We're image of God, and we're dirt. Some days, the image of God really wins out. Some days, you guys are so good. You say the right things. You act the right way. Some days you are so loving. And then there's those other days when the dirt wins out. When we say and do things that really don't work. The issue is, we know what we're going to do. One of the sad things about the research is it says that the disconnect that every one of us has between belief and behavior. We believe we need to do this, but our behavior doesn't necessarily correlate with what we really should do. And that's the challenge on this day. And again, even as fathers, how do we lead? As guys, how do we lead? Women, how do you embrace this? We all need to embrace this message. And so I want to kind of look through these 5 main words, and then there's a couple of concepts after that. The first word is the whole notion of compassion. How do we really develop that notion of compassion? How do we reach out? How do we have a heart? The other day I went to Starbucks, not just to get my mocha, though that's a pretty good reason to go. It's because it was Angel's last day as manager. And I knew that Angel loved her job. But the challenge is that her mother had terminal cancer, and her 12-year-old son with special needs. and Angel could not balance. As I got out of my car, Angel raced out of the Starbucks into the parking lot and hugged me. Why? Just because I knew her story. I'd listen to Angel's story. I'd say, Angel, can I pray for you? And she'd say, you can pray for me as long as you don't invite me to church. Because church makes me nervous. I have 3 kids from 3 different dads, and the church people don't like me. Isn't that sad? Angel's struggling. How do you have compassion for Angel? How do I reach out for Angel? And part of it is I just listen to Angel's story. I encourage Angel. And on that last day when Angel saw my black Stera move in to the parking lot, she was out there. Because people respond when you love them. They don't respond when you lecture them, when you tell them what to do, when you tell them how they messed up. Everybody knows, come on, we are all a mess. We're all a mess. You know what I say to most people is I say, okay, I know that you're a mess. I am just excellent at hiding my mess. You know? Some people's mess is out there, and you can see them. You'll watch them come in, and you know their mess. But most of us, we are more sophisticated. We bury our mess. We're still a mess. All of us are a mess. That's the good news of Jesus. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But God's great love, he loves us. He accepts us. You know, and that's the challenge. And we've got to be careful that in terms of, we don't ignore the compassion. Jesus was burnt out one day, and he just couldn't handle it. The people were driving him nuts. Have you ever had one of those days? It's, you know, I always think I would be a really great Christian if I didn't have to deal with people. I really would be. When I'm all by myself, I am so good. But then people, sometimes I just don't have the best response. I get cranky, I get irritable. Well, Jesus said, hey, disciples, get me away from the people. Take me, in the Gospels it says, take me to a lonely place. What's that mean? Take me where there's nobody around. Anybody been there? Get me away from here. I don't want to deal with anybody. So they get him in the boat, they zip him across the lake. I've been to the place where he's at, and it is a lonely place. It is dirt and stones and nothing. But guess what? The people, you remember the story, the people have raced around the lake. They are all there. And the disciples dock the boat, and Jesus has got to look out there, and he goes, I can't believe it. They're here. But no, that's not what Jesus' response is. He looks at the people, and it says, he had compassion, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. So in the next slide, we just have a thought. We need to slow down. We need to look at people. Compassion brings us to a stop. We've got to slow down and stop. And for a moment, we rise above ourselves, or we rise beyond ourselves. It's not all about us. It's about Angel struggling with her son and with her mom. It's about the people that have been so desperate that they've raced 4 or 5 miles along the lakeshore to make sure that Jesus saw them. We all need more compassion. And then we need kindness. Is the next one. We all need kindness. I was out in my backyard weeding and cutting down. I have a philosophy about weeds. If you can't see over them, it's time to cut them. You know, it's as simple, it's, we all have these standards, so here's my standard, and my weeds were getting kind of high. So I was out there weed eating, and a neighbor comes out, and he's, we start chatting, and And as we chat for 5, maybe 10 minutes, he says, you know what? You're the nicest neighbor in this whole area. Now, I'm not feeling good about that. You see, this neighbor moved in 5 years ago. This is the first conversation in 5 years that I've had with this neighbor. And how can I be the nicest neighbor he's met? I mean, come on. That just doesn't make any sense. But as I was chatting, to some other neighbors, they don't like this neighbor. Because you see, he parks his RV in his front yard. They don't like that. Now, I was chatting with this guy. He doesn't think anything of it. This guy is a great guy. Him and his girlfriend are there. And they're supporting each other. He's a truck driver. He's actually from Appalachia, which might explain why I don't know, trailers. But it offends the neighbors. So apparently, nobody's talking to him. Where's our kindness? You know what? I always think, there's people that annoy me, but who am I annoying? And I think maybe none of my neighbors are talking to me. But I moved my trailer out of my front yard, so I don't know what the deal is, But you know what? We need to be kind. I want you to look at this quote for just a minute, because I think it's a challenge here. Be kind, for everyone you meet is struggling with a battle you know nothing about. See, we don't know why people do what they do. They're battling something. And God cares about what they're battling. And why don't we care? But we get so wrapped up with our perspective. I was going to speak at a church and for a MOPS group. I love MOPS groups, mothers of preschoolers. I mean, those of you that have young kids, I mean, it is the toughest phase of family life, is when you have kids under the age of 5. And so I was getting there, and I was running a little bit late, and there was a car in front of me that was going so slow. Isn't that the way it works? When you're late, when you're on time, the road's clear. When you're running 5 minutes late, every bad driver in the universe gets in front of you and drives 20 miles below the speed limit. I mean, I think that's the rule of thumb. So I was going there, and I was just irritated. But then as I got off to the church, the lady drove in front of me. She drove into the church parking lot. I'm thinking, oh no, this is one of the groups that I'm speaking to. And then I watched her open her door and pull 4 kids out of car seats. And suddenly I have compassion. I have a sense of kindness. Next thing is humility. The issue is, how can we be humble in terms of things? We tend to get so absorbed with ourselves that we don't have that humility. In the quote that follows, it's from Bill Nye the Science Guy. Everybody know Bill Nye the Science Guy? I mean, if Bill Nye says it, it is true. And what Bill says here is, everyone you will ever meet knows something you don't. How do we have the humility to listen to people's stories, to have that humility, to back off? In 2010, the Miami Heat had 3 all-star players. They were determined that they were going to win the NBA championship, and they blew it. So they went to a consultant, and they said, you guys are too good. You guys are too good. You need to stop being so good. I said, what in the world are you talking about? They said, we want you to fire one of your A-plus players, one of your superstars, and hire a C-plus player. And they go, what? And they said, that's my advice. So they did it. They fired an A-plus player, got a C-plus player, won the next 2 national champions. And they said, what in the world is going on here? They said, the problem is when you are that good, you think you're that good, you don't have humility. And what happened is the guy that they hired had humility. He knew he was a C-plus player. And when he was interviewed later is to say, what's your secret of humility? He said, there's 3 points. First of all, praise everybody else around you. Build everybody else up. Let everybody know how, that you really admire them, compliment them, build them up. Secondly, just own that you're a C-plus player. Own that you are not perfect. Don't hide it. Everybody else sees it anyway. Just own it. And the third thing is make sure that you try to get better every year. Try to improve every year. And those things come together. That's the humility. The fourth word he uses is gentleness. He talks about how can we be gentle. And the notion is, especially for us guys, we like to take problems by the horns and wrestle the bull to the ground. How can we be gentle? The biggest challenge, I think, in the church is that we are not gentle. You see, when we're gentle, we create safe environments for people. For many people, the church isn't a safe environment. If people aren't coming to you to talk about their hurts, their challenges, somehow they don't see you as safe. And then we could spend a whole group of time looking on how can we become safe people. Next slide, we've got an image here that has to do with King Solomon. He talks about gentleness a number of times. 2 of the times he talks about it, he says, gentleness is like the shade of a tree. People are collected there. When you're gentle, people want to come to you. They want to sit in that shade. It's safe. Later on, 2 chapters later in Proverbs, Solomon says that a gentle answer turns away wrath. We all need to work on being more gentle. And then we need to be patient. I put impatient because I am the most impatient person. I get frustrated. I want things to happen. I want them to move forward. It drives me crazy. And then there's an image of me waiting for this lady who's driving slow in front of me. And the next image there, I'm just feeling, what in the world? I'm sure none of you have ever had that struggle, but we get impatient. But to hear people's stories, to show compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness, we need to slow down. And so Norwegian television has figured this out, and they now have slow TV. It started off with a train trip to Bergen, 7 hours. You can watch it. There are 148 tunnels, some of them very long, but you just get black, the blackness of it. And it got so popular that they decided to start a series. The next one is the 4-hour watching the lady knit. It's 4 hours. It slows you down. You watch her knit. Then they came out with fly fishing, watching a guy stand by the bank. It takes 3 hours for him to catch his first fish. Netflix has now picked up Norwegian slow TV, so you can enjoy 4 hours of knitting, slow you down. Now, if you are really a fanatic and you guys need to slow down, there is a website which is Watching Your Grass Grow, which is literally watching your grass grow, 10 years nonstop. You'll have to catch that on the web, but it slows you down. We are all moving way too fast. The next slide gives us the principle of really making allowances for each other's faults. How do you make allowance for each other's faults? Your friends are not perfect. Your friends, your family, your neighbors are going to do stupid things, just like you have done stupid things. And there's been times that people have looked at your life and shook their head and said, what in the world was she thinking? Come on, they have done it. Every one of you have had that happen. So stop pointing to other people. Stop, the issue is we all make mistakes. We all stumble. That's what the book of James says. If you look at the neuropsychology of the book of James, it's fascinating in terms of habit formation and in terms of stumbling. So the next screen reminds us that mistakes, maybe the sole purpose of your life is as a lesson to other people. That's the way life works. And then we move to the next concept in terms of just forgiving each other. We need to develop a stance of forgiving. And I know that there are some people that have driven you nuts, some people that have hurt you, but you know what? Jesus forgave you for all the things you've done. And part of good social intelligence is just letting go of all the things that drive you crazy. So let's go to the next screen, which is really love. Everything that we've talked about is really a definition of love, because love is, as we look at the next screen, love is going back and looking at, do we have compassion? And so we've got the list here in the next screen of the things that we all need to have as a challenge this week. In fact, one of the things to do is in your relationships, in your life, is to take, these 7 traits here and really evaluate, how am I doing every day on these traits? Because this is social intelligence. And right now, as we live in a very stressful culture, as life is crazy, social intelligence has gone downhill. And the core of what love is good social intelligence. That's really what it is. Love does. Love is a choice. Love is getting out there. There's a lot of those sayings that are good, and they're true. If we are going to ever take our faith seriously, we need to practice love. In the Greek, there's the word indios. Indios is the word that they use to describe 2 types of people. There are people in the world that are totally focused on themselves, that are totally focused on getting what they want. It's that self-absorbed. And then there's those people that are social-minded. But indios has to do with those individuals that they are not concerned about others. They're concerned with themselves. We've gotten the word from it, idiot. Idiots are individuals that are so absorbed with themselves that they lack compassion and kindness and humility and gentleness and patience and acceptance. The challenge is love. And as we look at the next screen, this is one of my favorite little sayings. A physician once said the best medicine for humans is love. Someone asked, what if it doesn't work? And he smiled and said, increase the dosage. Some of you, your medication is way too low. You need to increase the dosage. You need to up things. You need to say, okay, this person's driving me crazy. How do I show them more love? How can I be more kind to them? Shante Feldheim's new book is the 30-Day Kindness Challenge, because her notion is we as a culture have forgotten how to be kind. We've forgotten how to reach out. And she says that you can increase the satisfaction in your relationship in 30 days by 74% by strategically, intentionally practicing kindness. Other research says that if you want to extend your life 3 years, it's really simple. Be intentional and be generous. So I'm taking this very serious because I want to live 3 years longer. So I intentionally bought a Starbucks card for $10. and I'm going to give it to somebody, but this is the deal, whoever I give it to. I want you to pay for somebody else's coffee. There's enough for yours and there's enough for somebody else. So I want to challenge you. Does anybody here, would anybody here like to live 3 years longer? You see, I automatically get to live 3 years longer because I'm going to give this to this lady because she's the only one that wants to live 3 years longer. Sorry, the rest of you are in deep trouble. So, as we wrap up, remember, there's two types of people. Indios says there's those that are absorbed with themselves, and there's people that aren't. We get the word about those absorbed people. We have translated into the word idiot. You're an idiot if you're absorbed with yourself. So I just want to challenge you this week. Please don't be an idiot. Hey, let me close this in a word of prayer. Hey, dear Lord, hey, we just thank you that you love us, and we are so messed up. Man, if everybody here knew how messed up we would be, they wouldn't even be sitting next to us. But you know all about us, and you still love us. That's the good news of Psalms 139. You know all about us, and you still think that we are wonderfully and marvelously made. Lord, help us take the love that you've given to us and share it to the people around us, to where people become so excited about the good news that they can't wait to come to church and hear more about you. And Lord, we just thank you so much. We love you, but thank you for loving us. In your precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.